To Work with the Forest, a film from the Society of American Foresters. To work in the forest is to work in a peaceful place. To work in the forest is to work in a place that's tranquil and unhurried. A place that's removed from the bustle and the noise and the confusion of everyday life. It's always been that way. 3/4 of the forest lands Columbus found are still here, peaceful and unhurried. But there's a paradox. The forests seem to have changed very little, but the understanding, the managing, the practice of forestry, that's changed a great deal. To work in the forest is quiet work. To work with the forest, the southern pine, the western fir, the eastern hardwood, the California redwood, to work with these and the others, that's a difficult and complex job. The idea of forest management first took root here, in the mountains of North Carolina. The class of 1906 at the Biltmore Forest School. It was the first school in this country. The founder was Dr. Carl Schenck. He ran the school and taught classes 6 days a week in 27 different subjects. He even wrote the textbooks, most of them. Mornings in the classroom, afternoons in the woods. The school drove home the point that forestry is a lot more than just counting and cutting the trees. Even at the turn of the century, they recognized the value of intensive management.
As I understand it then, you started a sample capability area delineation with a quad, Sierra City quad, is that right?
Right.
And how is it going?
Okay, what we've done is we've taken that quad as the first one to test out the process that we've used.
The Biltmore students would hardly recognize forest management today. Jerry Larson is one of a growing number of women in the profession. She's deputy supervisor of the Tahoe National Forest in California. And she recognizes, as any forester does, that the job involves much more than being in the woods or conducting a staff meeting.
A very important part of the job of the forest manager is working with local governmental agencies and jurisdictions and the private landowners who have land within the national forest. These agencies and people have objectives and programs of their own, and one must get out into the community, become involved in community activities and organizations, get the sense of the feeling of the community residents as well as the agencies and elected personnel that represent them.
We just don't have time to
The forester feels the pressures of time, too. In the next 50 years, the demand for wood in this country is expected to double. And even today, the pressures are there. People pressures. People demanding more and expecting more from the forest lands of this country. Those pressures create an imperative for intelligent management. timber production, agriculture, recreation, and local politics. All these things create more pressure per acre. And if forest lands are to survive and serve all these needs, then it's up to the forest manager to find a way. And just when everything seems nailed down, there are new pressures. At Gifford Pinchot National Forest in Washington, there is Mount St. Helens. The eruptions brought death and rescue, 34,000 acres of fire, and sightseers and scientists. It all had to be managed. Foresters are trained and educated to protect forest lands, but one course they don't teach in forestry school is how to manage a volcano.
Yes, all of the ground parties have left the red zone at this time.
At Yale University, the curriculum covers just about everything else. Professor David Smith teaches silviculture, and he takes the broad view of the profession.
Forestry is every form of appropriate human knowledge applied to the management of forests. It embraces everything from economics to biology to chemistry to physics to engineering, even to psychology. It is a kind of application of liberal education in the woods. The objective of it is to ensure that forests become a perpetual source of human goods and services.
Someone said a long time ago that the forest was built with the axe. The reason for this is that the trees tend to live up to the limit of the available growing space, which is set by...
Smith wrote the book on modern silviculture, literally, and he spends his time refining the theory and preaching the gospel around the world.
From above there. Now this means that if we want to replace an old forest with a new one, or modify one which exists now, we can do it only by creating vacancies. Now, this is nothing more than taking...
The forester emulates nature, speeding up the process to create healthier and more productive forests.
Lethal disturbances.
Emulating nature is a big job for the forest industry. The research forester looks for the superior tree, tall and straight, holding out the promise for the future. Branches are grafted onto rootstock to create an entire orchard of superior trees. Coastal loblolly pine, grown by West Vaco in South Carolina. Seeds from this one orchard will produce 3 million seedlings. They'll be used for regeneration. Knowing when and where to cut, what to grow, knowing about botany, genetics, engineering, all these things come into play. All these things and a lot more. To do the job right, the forester needs access to current, accurate information. Computers, digitizers, plotters. Information technology is harnessed. This technology is harnessed and used as one tool to help strike the balance of pressures. Not all the pressures come from people and business. After all, the forest is a home, a refuge for wildlife. Striking the balance of nature is important. Protecting the creatures of the forest and protecting the watershed. This, too, is modern forest management. More and more, these concerns are reaching the private landowner. A case in point is Sugar Springs Farm, a tree farm in Grantham, New Hampshire. The owner is Merle Shotanis, and he recognizes the value of forest management and calls on experts to provide the help he needs.
Crisis, so we think we're probably in pretty good shape to put out 2,000 taps and still retain the vigor of the trees.
Well, how many parts of wood do you burn in your sugar house?
Well, it takes about 30 cords per year.
Where do you get it from?
Some of that you can see is...
Stanley Colville and Joe Smyka provide the advice on managing the farm. Saw timber, firewood, recreation and wildlife management. All are part of the development plan for the farm. Here, too, the balance needs to be struck.
What do you got, Joe?
Smyka is an extension forester working for the state of New Hampshire. Colville is a private consultant. Both bring specific areas of knowledge to the problems of the private landowner. And both are members of the Society of American Foresters, more than 20,000 professionals, public and private, educators and students, researchers and administrators, all using their knowledge to improve the future of forest resources.
Good future crop tree. Tree will be worth about $50.
For Shotanis, that future can spell loss or profit, depending on how he manages today.
What are we talking about in dollars?
Stanley Colville gives a professional prediction about that future.
Well, if you add 100 of those per acre, 300, well, you'll have 500 board feet per tree. Give it 40 years, and 400 or 500, 5,000 an acre.
"40 years seems like a long time, but the professional knows that to achieve positive results a long time off, plans have to be made now. Work has to be done today. Working in the forest, that quiet, peaceful place, is no longer good enough. To work with the forest, that's what's needed. And that's what modern forestry is all about.